I wanted to go over chapter 3 a little bit more. We're going to take another look at the PowerPoint I did. I added some slides, and I'm going to try to address some of the questions that were coming up in class on Thursday. The first thing that I want to address is this chapter is on sentence patterns. Okay, and if we think about what a pattern is, it's something where it consistently happens, like the example in the picture, X, X, Y, Y, Z, Z. And when I was giving the example sentences, and we were talking about how they would be diagrammed, and there were some questions about the sentences that I had as examples were different than the sentences in the book. We can still keep the same pattern and just substitute in different words. For example, if we add the A, B, B, C, C, it's still the same pattern, but we just have different letters there. Okay, and that's kind of what's happening here when we write these different sentences. It still follows the same pattern. The words still play the same role in the sentence, but the words may change up. Okay, we're going to go through each of these. I won't spend a ton of time on these, but I diagram the sentences so you can take a look at them. In this example, I have the students are late. Okay, the students is the noun phrase, are is the be verb, and late is the adverb of time or place. And if you look here, here's the example. The students are late, and then we also have the students are upstairs. Okay, in both of these sentences, students is the subject, are is the be verb, the adverb of time or place is late, and it comes down off of the word that it modifies. So we have late and upstairs coming down off of the be verb are. Okay, both of those are adverbs of time or place. Late is an adverb of time, upstairs is an adverb of place. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Noun phrase plus be verb plus adjective. And this one, it shows, it states that the adjective is in the subject complement role. It follows the verb and describes the subject. Okay? So we have this example. The students are silly. Students is the subject, are is the be verb, and silly is the adjective that's in the subject complement role. Okay, and the example that was in the textbook, the students are diligent, it follows the same pattern. The words are different, but they each have the same role or the same function in the sentence, so that's why these sentences are the noun phrase, be verb, adjective, sentence pattern. Okay, the next one, noun phrase, be verb, noun phrase. In this case, the second noun phrase follows the be verb, and it is a noun that renames the subject. Okay. If you looked in the textbook at all, it had the little numbers on some of these sentence patterns. It had a little number. So in this example, it was NP with a little 1, B, NP with a little 1. That 1 just means that these noun phrases have the same referent. Okay, they are referring to the same thing. So in this case, the student was a good citizen. Student and citizen are both referring to the same thing. Okay, in the other example, the students are scholars. Students and scholars are both referring to the same thing. Okay. And for each of these sentences, if you notice the word the comes down off of student, that's your determiner telling us which student or students. And then we also have a and good coming down off of citizen, because those are modifiers describing citizen. Okay. Next pattern. Noun phrase, linking verb, adjective. This is very similar to the, I'm going to go back, it's very similar to this one, noun phrase, be verb, adjective. Okay. If you look at the structure here on this diagram, and then we'll go forward and look at the structure here in the diagram. You have your noun phrase, and then you have your linking verb. Your noun phrase is the subject, then the linking verb, and then the adjective. And some of you have learned that this is a predicate adjective. The adjective that follows the be verb or the linking verb is a predicate adjective. It describes the subject. Okay? So in these examples, the students seem attentive and the students seem diligent. In both cases, students is the subject, seem is the linking verb, and then attentive and diligent, those are both adjectives, and they follow that linking verb, so they are in that subject complement role again, and they describe the subject, or they describe students. We could create a different sentence, a completely different sentence, and if we said the attentive students, okay, that the word attentive, or we could say the diligent students. Attentive and diligent, those are both adjectives. They both describe students. All right, let's look at the next one. Noun phrase plus linking verb plus noun phrase. And I'm going to go back. This is like this pattern, noun phrase, be verb, noun phrase. These patterns are almost exactly the same. Really, the only difference here is they created a category. The textbook created a category for the be verbs and then another category for the linking verbs. So as far as the way these are structured and the roles that the words have in the sentence, they're almost exactly the same. Really, the only difference is one uses a be verb, one uses a linking verb. So let's look at these sentences. If you notice, the noun phrase functions as the subject, we have the linking verb, and then the second noun phrase functions as a predicate nominative. This is also something that you may have learned previously. Some of you were a little confused because you felt like the textbook is using terms that you're not familiar with. The things that the words in the sentences are doing are things that you probably are familiar with. You may have learned some different labels. Basically, our textbook is kind of stepping back and kind of taking bigger picture descriptions of things. Rather than giving a separate name for the subject and a separate name for the predicate nominative, they're calling it a noun phrase. So if we step back and look at the bigger picture, you have your noun phrase has a noun and then any kind of descriptors in front of it. It can be something like a, an, and the. It can be an adjective also. And that works in both of those roles, in the subject role and in that function as the predicate nominative in that second noun phrase role. Okay, so the sentence is here. The students became activists. The students became scholars. Both cases, the subject is students. The linking verb is became. And then we have a noun that follows that linking verb, and it renames the subject. Okay, students. The students are activists. The students are scholars. Our linking verb became connects those two pieces. All right, let's look at the next one. Noun phrase and intransitive verb. And like we said, the intransitive verb does not require an object. The example we used here, the students mutinied. So we have students in that subject role for both sentences, and then our intransitive verb is mutinied. And in the second sentence, it's rested. In both cases, we have the word the coming down from students. That's your determiner. that functions as a descriptor for students. Neither of these sentences require an object. So it can appear to be a very simple sentence. All right, next one, noun phrase, transitive verb, noun phrase. The transitive verb means that your verb requires an object. And some of you have learned the term direct object. The second noun phrase functions as a direct object. You answer, after you say the subject and the verb, it answers the question who or what. So if we say the students organized a strike, that's our sentence. And then we answer those questions, who or what. The students organized what? A strike. That's your direct object. Okay, so we have these two sentences here. I think you probably figured out in each of these examples, the top diagram is the sentences I used in the PowerPoint. The bottom diagram is the example sentence in the textbook. So we have the students organized a strike. Students is your subject. Organized is your transitive verb. Strike, that's your second noun phrase, and it's the direct object. Notice here when we have the transitive verb with an object, with the direct object, that second line is just straight up and down, and it doesn't cross that long line that all the words are sitting on. Because it's sitting, because the word is strike and both strike and marathon, and they're in that second noun phrase role, they're functioning as a direct object. That line just goes up and down. It doesn't cross. It's different than that subject complement role where it's a backslash. Okay, so pay attention to that. All right, next pattern, noun phrase, transitive verb, noun phrase, noun phrase. The second noun phrase, we talked about this in class, the second noun phrase functions as an indirect object. It answers the question to whom or for whom. And the third noun phrase functions as the direct object. So the sentence I used, the students gave the teacher their list of demands. All right, so students is our subject, gave is our verb. Students gave what? List, okay? And then if we ask that question, students gave list to whom or for whom? Teacher, okay? So they gave the list to the teacher. So teacher comes down underneath the verb. If we added the word to this and said students gave their list of demands to the teacher, okay, then it becomes a prepositional phrase. If that confuses you by me saying that, then just completely ignore that. But that second noun phrase, teacher, is functioning as an indirect object. That's who the students give the list to. All right. This top sentence, the students gave the teacher their list of demands. This is the first time that you're seeing a prepositional phrase coming up. And I just want to point that out, how that is on the diagram. Of demands is a prepositional phrase, and it is describing list. So to show that on a sentence diagram, you just come down off of underneath the word that it's describing. Okay, in this case it's list. Diagonal line, you put your preposition on the diagonal line, and then a straight line coming out from that, that's your object of the preposition. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Noun phrase plus transitive verb plus noun phrase plus adjective. All right, the adjective functions as an object complement. It describes the second noun phrase or the direct object. Okay, and the example sentence we had, students consider their demands necessary. And students is a subject, consider is the verb. What do students consider? Demands. And necessary is an adjective following demands, and it describes demands. If you look at that backslash, this is very similar to the subject complement that we have earlier. Really, the only difference is what it's describing. Okay, so it follows demands because that's the word that it's describing here. So we have students, subject, consider is the verb, demands is the direct object, and then necessary is the object complement. Okay. Next one, this is the very last one. Noun phrase plus transitive verb plus noun phrase plus noun phrase. The third noun phrase functions as an object complement. It renames the second noun phrase. Okay, and the sentence we have is the students elected Grammar Girl their leader. All right, we have students as the subject in the subject role, and then elected is the verb. Students elected who? Grammar Girl. That's your second noun phrase. It's functioning as a direct object, and then the object complement is leader. That's your third noun phrase. All right, and you see that that follows the backslash. It's kind of like that little arrow pointing to Grammar Girl saying, I am renaming. The word leader is basically renaming Grammar Girl. Okay. If you look at this sentence that was in the textbook, students is the subject, consider is the verb. Students consider what? Course. That's your direct object. The is your determiner. It's describing course, giving us more information about which course. Okay. Students consider course a challenge. All right. Challenge is your third noun phrase, and it is in the object complement role. It renames course. Okay. So we've worked through all of the different sentence patterns. This is the pattern that most sentences will follow. Yes, sentences tend to be more complicated than this. We write more complicated sentences than this, but they still follow this type of pattern. We can have lots of prepositional phrases that kind of come off. We can have clauses that are not part of that, like subordinate clauses. They still may have a lot of these same patterns, but they may function, basically they're going to come off of this basic sentence pattern. It looks a little bit confusing, and we'll talk about some of these a little bit more as we get further into the chapter. Okay, but these 10 patterns, this is what I think the textbook said, 95% of the sentences follow these patterns. There are a few exceptions that they list in the textbook, but this is what most of our sentences, the patterns that most of our sentences will follow. The last thing that I want to bring up is a couple people had asked about the words that are coming off underneath the subject or underneath the verb, coming underneath some of the, like the direct object or predicate adjective. Okay. Those are modifiers. And if you think about how we put sentences together, we can have basic words like students, let me look at an example. Students elected Grammar Girl. Okay, we can have a basic sentence. Students elected Grammar Girl. We can dress it up with accessories by using modifiers. If you, sorry, these are girl clothes, but if you think about it this way, a basic outfit, shirt and pants, or shirt and a skirt, you can change up that outfit and make it look different with accessories. You can add a jacket, you can add jewelry, you can add a purse, you can add shoes. You can wear the same basic pieces, but the way you dress it up, the accessories you use, make it a completely different outfit. Same thing with a sentence. You can have some basic words, a subject, a verb, an object, but then the use of modifiers kind of dress it up and change that sentence completely. All right, I will be making a few more videos explaining some of the different sentences that you did for homework, and I'm going to start doing some more videos ahead of when we meet in class, so you'll have a little bit more instruction prior to coming to class.